Cody, welcome to Undisputed Wrestling Show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. I'm going to, Drew's a little more familiar than I am, so I'm going to let him hit the leadoff question, and I'm going to roll in right behind him.
Sounds good.
Cody, how you feeling tonight?
I'm doing all right, my brother. Doing all right. Live at SmackDown in Cincinnati, Ohio right now.
Awesome, man. Cody, you have been everything from a security guard, a referee, a main eventer, a trainer, a promoter, owner, and you're just doing it all. Could you let our listeners know how it all started for you?
Well, it's been quite some time ago, about 20 years ago. My ex-brother-in-law, old Jackson Breeze, he was involved with, I guess your later guest in the show, Les, and he got me involved with Les and went down. We started training, and I was hooked, and there was nothing going to keep me away from it. And as I went through the business and as I learned the ropes and trained, and I figured out that the more jobs I knew how to do, the better chance I'd have for longevity in the business. So, just do it all, train, learn how to wrestle, learn how to ring announce, learn how to set up a ring, learn how to commentate, learn how to do whatever you need to do, so that you can, firmly be a part of the business for as long as, you want to be.
Cody, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Was there a defining moment, either as a kid or a young man, where you made that decision to become a professional wrestler? And tell us a little bit about that moment, if you would.
Not really as a kid. I mean, I loved wrestling as a kid. I had WWE at noon and NWA at 1 o'clock. That's where it was where I lived. And, I was just a super fan as a kid. And then once wrestling went on cable, like where I lived, we didn't really have cable. So I kind of got away from wrestling for a few years. And then, I don't know, in my late teens, early 20s, then I ended up getting reconnected with wrestling. And like I said, I just had expressed one night while watching an episode of WCW Thunder that, I always kind of wanted to be a pro wrestler. And at that point in time, he was my brother-in-law. He was a manager that worked for Les down at HWA. And he's like, I know a school and I can take you there and you can check it out. And I went there and I watched practice that night, and I watched about 6 guys beating the crap out of each other, and I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And that was probably the defining moment right there. I was married at the time, and I went home and I told the wife, I have this beautiful car sitting outside, and I am selling that thing, and I am enrolling in wrestling school ASAP. And she thought I was nuts. My parents thought I was nuts. Friends thought I was nuts, but that's exactly what I did. And, 20 years later, here I am.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, it's a hard thing to explain to people on the outside about how you feel about it. You're actually better off not trying to explain it, because they're never going to get it.
Right, when you tell people it's like a drug, it's like the most addictive thing that you've ever done in your life, people just don't get it. They don't understand. How could you like to go out there and get the crap beat out of you and enjoy that? And I'm just, it's just the way it is, and I do. Some people bowl, some people,
right.
play volleyball. Well, I wrestle.
You know what I always say is wrestlers are square pegs and society's a round hole, and we're just never going to fit. We're never going to fit completely into that society thing, no matter how hard we try. I often say, it's funny how I'm at a holiday party with my family. Yeah, I'm on edge and nervous and uncomfortable, but in a locker room, I feel like I'm home. It's crazy, and I guess it's other people knowing what you go through and understanding the passion and things like that for it. Now, tell me what you're up to now, because aren't you training people?
I do. I run a little, I just have my own little training gig that I'm doing. Right now it's out of Franklin, Ohio. That may soon be changing. I just actually purchased a ring yesterday, and I'm looking for a new little space just to get in so I can just kind of do my own thing and not have to rely on anybody else or worry about, buildings falling through or, anything like that. So, So I'm training and, wrestling a few shows. I still get out and probably do, 5 to 6, maybe 7 shows a month. It's like I said, mainly for me right now, it's about training and, there's so many people in my area that just never received good training, or they thought they received good training, but really they didn't. And I don't know, for the last several years, that's kind of just been my thing, just trying to latch onto a few people and help them get over the hump and become better at what they do and care about it a little more and care about their character and what they're presenting to the audience, and not just, hey, this is something fun to do on a Friday night.
Right. I feel you exactly. I just opened a school here. I ran one from 97 to 2000. I trained Joey Mercury with Joey Matthews originally and Christian York. And so I decided to open up. I wanted to come off the road. I'd been on the road for years, and I'm in North Carolina. So when you talk about, wrestlers that aren't fully trained or not thought they were trained, but they really weren't, this is as full as your area of the woods out there in Ohio is too, but the same thing. So, I figured if I opened it up and, Saturdays I let wrestlers from anywhere can come on Saturday, and for $30 they can work out all day, and I'm there with them, helping them and, trying to improve the overall landscape of the business. Yeah, I'm yet to have anybody show up on a Saturday.
Well, I'm happy right now. Like I got, I had a class that I just started, a 100-hour, 20-week class, and I was only taking eight new students, and I sold that out. I got 8, and then the 8 that I had in my last class, I had them all returned. So I'm pretty happy. Like my classes have been averaging about 16 people a class right now, and it's a good mix. Some guys that kind of know what they're doing, and some guys that are just 4 weeks into the business.
Right. Yeah, it's good. And you know what? I think for us as we get older, for a lot of us anyway, our passion switches, and it's more giving these guys what we learned over the years and trying to make the business better and improve it. And, it's a labor of love, brother.
True story. And, I'm sure it's the same way in just about every little area. But, here there's too many guys with their hands out taking money from guys, and they teach them how to take a few falls or teach them how to run ropes, and then they slap a graduation sticker on them and say, you're a wrestler, congratulations. And, they just go out and they pollute the business, and it just, it makes it hard to make a dollar. And, so that's really my goal is just, let's make everybody as good as we can, and then maybe we can all make some money.
Right. And that's the thing too, it's sad because if you get a kid, I just had a kid who called me and was talking to me about my school, and I said, listen, it's 6 to 12 months because, I can train you to do the physical stuff in 3, but I keep you so that psychology's second nature, and you can tell a story in the ring, and you can call it in the ring without thinking about it because you know what comes next. So it makes sense. And he goes, well, this one guy told me he trained me at 3 months. But I'd have my first match in 6 weeks. I said, all right, go visit him, and then come visit my school. So he went and visited him, came to my school. He signed up at my school yesterday. So, but I know exactly what you mean. It's the same thing everywhere with that. Drew, let me get back in here with your buddy Cody and talk to him for a minute, ask him some questions.
Right on. Cody, we talked about all the different hats that you wore. You've wrestled the Who's Who's. You've wrestled for every major company on different shows, WCW. You're at SmackDown right now. You've even been the Sting impersonator on Raw. All these different things.
Nobody's supposed to know that. Nobody's supposed to know that. Kayfabe.
Right on. You've trained all these different guys. You got guys that are there now. Dean Ambrose, aka John Moxley, was your student. I'm one of your students. Thank you very much. As well as you got Eli Drake in TNA, Sandy Callahan, who's down at NXT. And you're still wrestling 6 to 7 times a month. I want to thank you as well. You wrestled with one of my students in front of about 500 people on Saturday, and that was a very good learning experience for him. What joys? Which? And obviously the passion that you have for the business is overwhelming. But what gives you the most joy in the different things that you've done?
I'm struggling to hear you a little bit. I don't know. Dean Ambrose might be in the ring. Everybody's going bananas over here by the door. So, you know, just being in and around the business and the boys and, just seeing my students grow and seeing them, you know, achieve dreams and goals and, you know, and drawing your buddy the other night, like that show that we were at the other night, that's my favorite show of the year that, at that place because, they put everybody's name on a big wheel and they spin it and it's straight up, you know, when your name gets drawn, you go to the ring and, nobody has time to prepare or plan for anything. And that's just the way I love it. I like to go out there and just do my thing. And, I was so very happy to draw your student the other night. He was perfect out there for me. You know, he just listened and he did what he was supposed to do. And, you know, it was a fun time. It made the night super easy for me. And, that's just the way I like to do it. I like to go out there and just listen and just, you know, let my crowd tell me what I'm going to do and not just try and cram something down their throat, whether they like it or not. And, you know, seeing some of my guys like John or Dean, whatever you'd like to call him, you know, make it to the top. I mean, there's not really much more of a proud feeling than you can have. And, you know, yeah, he was, talking about Joey Mercury a little bit ago, you know, another just awesome professional, who I've met a few times over the road. And, earlier this year, I got to do a bunch of stuff for WWE and that was pretty much directly through, John and Joey. And, you know, they took care of me and got me, in the door again, so to speak, you know, and it'd been, 8 years since I'd worked for WWE. So that's it, you know.
Well, that's awesome. What's your goals, left in the business? Like I said, you've done pretty much everything. How much longer is Cody Hawk going to be in the ring? And trust me, I'm in no hurry, to see you get out of it. But,
well, I don't know. My gig is, my goal is at this point is just, you know, to continue to have fun and enjoy it as long as my body will let me do it. And when my body says, you know, hey, you can't go like you used to, you can't keep up with these guys, you know, still at this point I'm out cardioing all the guys and stuff. So I'm not struggling at all yet, but, I know that day is going to come. You know, I'm approaching 42 this year and I'm, just about 20 years into the business and, you know, geez, 2,800 matches, something like that behind me. You know, as far as goals that I have left, I don't really have too many goals left in the business. I mean, aside from just being able to stay in it as long as I want to stay in it. And as far as when I may hang them up, well, like I said, only my body will tell me that. And when I can't go with guys anymore, then that'll be when it's time to just switch over and, you know, be on the backside of wrestling. I kind of have a feeling, though, that I will somehow be involved with the business as long as there is a business or as long as there is a Cody Hawk.
Well, I can tell you, I've seen from the young surfer Cody Hawk and all the way up until, you know, just last Saturday, and you haven't lost a step, and the business will be better off the longer that you're in it, for sure.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Checks in the mail.
Sure,
Checks in the mail. You're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com. We're rapping with our pal Cody Hawks here. Cody, tell me the moment in your career. I had a moment where I wrestled Dominic DeNucci in a sold-out Beaver Dome with Bruno Sammartino calling the play-by-play. Tell me the moment you had that sticks in your head as the best.
Oh, geez. It's been probably, I don't know, I'd say late 2001, early 2002. HWA was under developmental contract and all of those guys, from the old WCW were sent there and some of the guys that weren't on TV were sent to WWE. And, I got to go do I don't even remember what event it was, whether it was a Shotgun Saturday or a Sunday Night Heat or something like that. I got to go do an event where I wrestled Val Venus in a 4-minute dark match. And, at that point, like so many people had told me, hey, you look like Val Venus. You guys could be brothers. You guys should do something like that. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's stuck there at HWA, and, you know, I whispered that in his ear one day and told him that, and he was like, you know, I do kind of see the resemblance. And, you know, he was a really cool dude, and we went out and had this little 4-minute dark match, and by all rights, he could have eaten me alive. I was a nobody. And he didn't. He worked me a straight up 50-50 match and tapped me out at the end, and it was beautiful. And I was like almost in tears in the ring, like, this is so amazing and so awesome. I got to do this. I got to do this in front of a full crowd in a local town, and, you know, just, I don't know. There's just something about that vibe that comes out of those arenas when there's that many people watching you and it all goes right.
Yeah, it is amazing. I got a little work from those guys in the 90s, and I remember my first gig. Now, as a kid, I grew up in upstate New York, so I watched there was the WWF back then, because I'm really old. And, I remember thinking, gee, I'd like to wrestle in Madison Square Garden someday. And of course I had a chance to do that. And it's the same type of thing. I mean, you know, back in the day, and I know you did some stuff up there back in the day where when you went out, that arena was packed to the rafters with people. I mean, you couldn't have got 10 more people in that building, you know?
Right.
Get in front of those crowds. What a rush, huh?
Yeah. I mean, my very first, WWE show ever was a Sunday Night Heat in Detroit, and it was, you know, at Joe Louis Arena, and it was sold out, roughly 23,000 people. And, you know, I walked down that ramp, you know, you're going down the ramp with the referee, you got no music, you got nothing, everybody's calling you jabroni and jobber and all the, who are you? And I'm just smiling ear to ear like, this is the best time I've ever had. So
I feel you, brother. You know, I remember doing that. By the time I got to the ring, I was breathing hard. I'm like, are you kidding me? Am I blown up from walking down here? But, you know, it's the adrenaline that's flowing. You're just rushed, you know, so.
Right. And I've actually been very fortunate over the years that I've got to do a lot of things with the WWE, and I've got to do a lot of things, you know, which involved me, allowed me to involve some of my students and trainees, and I've got to bring them around, and they've gotten to do things. And that's a pretty cool feeling when you're standing out there, or like, you know, I did some Rosebud stuff earlier this year, and I had a bunch of my trainees with me out there doing it, and I was just like, just stand here for a minute, just take 2 seconds and look around this arena and just breathe it in, because you may never be here again.
Yeah, and you know, you never forget it. Once you're there, you never forget it.
Right. It's that undying urge to get back to that.
Absolutely. Let me ask you something, Cody. Your most favorite opponent, not necessarily toughest, but the guy that you really always look forward to being in there with, and you had really good chemistry and really good matches. Who's that guy for you? Oh,
there's actually two. One guy, he's been retired since 2002. His name was Ray Steele. Drew would know who he was. He was an HWA guy, and he was just my polar opposite. Like, we went together exactly perfectly on shows. I knew what he was going to do before he did it, and he knew what I was going to do. And then the other would be Matt Stryker, who came up same time as me, and you know, at one point in time, him and I were the trainers at HWA, and you know, he was another guy where we had just trained and worked so many times together that we just knew each other perfectly, and we could go out there and do an hour uncalled and never miss a beat, never blow a spot or nothing. And it was just, those are my two favorite guys, I think, you know, to be out there. But truthfully, anybody that wants to get in the ring and just have a match and enjoy it and feed off the crowd, that's now become like my favorite thing.
Yeah. You know, it's like, I heard you say that you and Drew talking that you worked with one of his students on Saturday night, and you said the key word to me, and this is all I ever asked for when I got in there with somebody that was green. Listen. Just listen. If you listen, we can have a really good match. I'll make you look great. You can do the same thing for me, but you gotta listen to me. And I just had this conversation that I'll take a young guy, a little less physically talented, a little less athletic, who listens, versus somebody in great shape who isn't going to listen to me. Because you can always pull a good one out of the kid that listens. So,
you know, I wrestled him on Saturday, and you know, we didn't miss a beat. I'd never been in the ring with the guy before. We didn't talk anything out before the back. You know, I didn't even know who my opponent was. I was standing in the ring. I was like, oh, which guy is this coming out? I wasn't even sure who it was. You know, and we had a great match. By comparison, a few days earlier, I had a match with somebody who's been in the business about 12 years, and they wanted to, sit in the back and talk about our 15 minutes from top to bottom, and it didn't go perfectly, and they never do.
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm on the same page with you, brother. I can't do that. I'm going to forget it out there anyway. I'm old, so I'll let a kid tell me exactly what he wants to do right before we go out. Hey, listen, I'm sorry, I forgot everything. Just listen to me out there.
Right. I like to camp out. I like to camp out in my car until it's almost time for me to wrestle.
That's right. Well, the thing with that is, and you understand it, that we're calling what we're doing according to the crowd and the crowd response and everything else. So, it's a lot more organic and it's a lot more in tune with the way the crowd is feeling and who they're feeling about, whoever. But you see guys that go out there, and this has drove me nuts for years. They'll plan everything out in the back, and they go out there in the ring, and the crowd's not buying what they're selling, and they don't know how to change it. They just have to go through that 15 minutes of spot after spot after spot, and after about 5 minutes, the crowd looks like an oil painting. So
right.
I think that's one of the great things. I mean, you're training guys out there, and I know you're training them, to be able to call it out there, and I think that's what the business needs more of. And I think it'll get back to being a little bit better situation. And, I mean, not for nothing, but, if we could get promoters on the same page and, hire good quality wrestlers and pay them, all the shows would be better. They'd all draw 500 people like they used to back in the day. But, you remember how it was. In 2000, you can walk into a locker room, 99, 2000, you can walk into a locker room anywhere in the country, and you weren't worried about who you were going to get paired up with. Because almost everybody working decent indie shows back then could go. Now when you're out there, you never know what you're going to get. You get this kid that doesn't get it, and he's going to kill you or something out there.
Yeah, like, the guy you're working might be his first match, or it might be his 10th match, and he's been in the business for 5 years, and, it just never goes right, never goes well. There's so much of that up here, and like you said, I'm sure it's all over the place, and everywhere, but, hopefully one day we'll be able to get the business back to where it's supposed to be. I try and teach my guys to call stuff in the ring first and then learn how to memorize. And I kind of always tell them, hey, it takes you like 10 minutes to memorize your phone number. It'll take you like 10 minutes to learn how to memorize a match. Learn how to call the match on the fly. That's what takes a long time, and that's the artistry of pro wrestling.
You're exactly right. And, going out there and getting the most out of people by doing the least. So, but let me turn it back over to Drew. You're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show, and we're cashing checks and snapping necks with Cody Hawks. Drew, do you have a question for Cody? I know you must.
Well, I do. You talked a little bit there about Race and Matt Stryker, and those were great matches, especially for a young green kid like me to get to watch, breaking in the business. And I have sit and talked several different times about the changes and things that we've seen from when HWA first got the developmental, and they brought those 6 guys from Memphis, and unfortunately only 2 of those guys are still around today. What are some of the biggest changes, Cody, that you've seen from when you started to today?
The biggest changes, honestly, the lack of caring for our business. There are just too many people who have an extra couple $1,000 who want to buy a wrestling ring and just throw it up in a garage somewhere and stick a few signs out and say, we're a wrestling promotion. And all those garbage wrestlers go there to work because they can't work anywhere else. And then a fan goes to that show and they think that show sucks, and now they've equated that to all independent wrestling. And you can't get that fan to pay his money to go to another show to give it another try because they're so jaded from the crap that they've seen. Back in the day, like you said a little bit ago, all the shows drew well back in the day. Even poor drawing shows still drew 100 people. And now it seems like half the promotions and crowds, they're lucky if they can get 100 people in the building. And, that's one of the big changes, lack of respect for our business. Nobody cares anymore.
Go ahead, Drew.
Go ahead. I was going to say that's exactly right. I'm sure that's where you're going to, Q. And it amazes me as well, all these people who claim to love the business, but are doing a really good job of killing it.
Yeah,
right.
these guys are the ones that want to go in the ring and play Superman. You know, I was talking with Rick Steamboat a couple months ago, and I said this to him, and he looked at me and said, "Where the F did you come from?" And I told him, I said, you know, to me, the whole problem with the business, I mean, there's a lot of people in it, like you said, Cody, that don't respect it. They shouldn't be in it. Years ago, they never would have been allowed to get into it because it wasn't about making a few bucks on training a kid. It was about protecting the business. So they would have never made it.
Yeah, it was an elite fraternity back then, and you know, you were special if you got into the wrestling business. Now there's nothing special about being in the wrestling business. I meet people all the time, and they're like, "Hey, I heard you're a wrestler. Oh, my cousin's a wrestler. My brother's a wrestler. My best friend's a wrestler. Everybody's a freaking wrestler."
Yeah, it's so true. You know, when it became available to people to be able to get into the business really cheap, and the business got overexposed, you know, it's tough. And one of the things I was saying is, you know, if you take those guys out of the business and you look at a lot of the guys that are physically look good in the ring, and can do some stuff, the one thing that I see that's missing in the whole business overall is the ability to sell. And, you know, I think everything in a match starts with selling. If your face can't sell, the heel's not going to get any heat. He's not going to get over. If the face doesn't sell, he's not going to get over, and people aren't going to buy into it. And without that, you can't get people emotionally invested. You know, I'm fortunate enough to work with Omega here, who draws 1,000, 1,200 every show, and I know you guys work for some big promotions out there. And you know, the different thing about these promotions is they have enough talented guys, or a guy that sort of agents the matches who understands how to tell guys what to do, or guys that know what to do to get the fans emotionally invested in the match. Because if they do that, they're going to be there with you from beginning to end. And if you can put a card together these days, I believe, with 6 or 7 matches where every guy understands his job is to get the guy over, and you got to sell to get anything else out of the match, and you have good finishes that are different, I think that promotion can run 6 or 7 matches on a card, and I think they can build a tremendous following out there of, you know, 500 plus people still to this day, because, you know, it's just like you said, Cody, it's guilt by association. I say this down here, I go to these shows down here that last 5.5 hours in an armory. You take a family of 4, you set them in a steel chair in an armory in North Carolina heat in the summertime for 4.5 hours with guys on the show that look like, you know, they should be bagging groceries at the grocery store, and these guys are tainted. They're not coming back. And then this promotion falls by the wayside, because they always do eventually. And then what happens is a good promotion comes to town, but it's guilt by association. Those people say, "Oh no, I went to one of those shows. I went to one of those shows 5 years ago. It was horrible. I was there for 5 hours with my kids." You know, so to be able to understand, you know, what you do and what you can give guys in the business, gives guys like me hope. You know, I'm a pretty good friend with Pablo Marquez, and Danny Cage owns the Monster Factory, and you know, I think that they're doing the right thing. I know that you're doing the right thing, and I think that if we all continue to try to do this, that eventually we'll be able to get enough people out there wrestling who know what they're doing to sort of take the business back a little bit. I got to believe that, or I won't get up tomorrow morning if I don't.
Yeah, you know, I here in Ohio, we've got an athletic commission, but it's a joke. And I've had many battles with athletic commissions in other states and everything, but I really wish that we had a very stringent athletic commission, one that, made promoters have their licenses and made wrestlers have some sort of license that says, you know, this guy is a trained professional, and he is not going to get out there in the ring and kill somebody because he doesn't know what he's doing. You know, one of my good friends got sick from, some blood, and, I think that we should all be blood tested. I feel like that's a big deal, you know. Every other aspect of life, you got to do that nowadays. Why not us? Why not, Joe Schmo and his indie promotion that's running down the road in front of 25 fans? Why should they be exempt from that? You know?
I agree with you 100%.
Totally.
You know,
totally agree with
if
that.
these commissions would step in and make things, make things harder on promoters, there'd be a lot less promoters.
Brother, you are so right. And guess what? Those are the promoters, I call them shitbirds, but those are the promoters that get all the guys out of training 6 months early to wrestle for them, but they're not going to pay them. They're going to work for free. So the kid walks away from his wrestling school. He doesn't know any better. He wants to wrestle. And he goes for this guy. He's working for free. And then you know what happens? You got a promotion where the promoter doesn't know what he's doing. He's not paying anybody. Two of the boys are so convoluted that they think that they should have a title to get over. They don't understand going over and getting over is not related. So they got to have a belt, and they get pissed off, and then they go open up another company exactly like this, but maybe even a little bit worse, 30 miles down the road. And it spreads like wildfire. So, you know, I think I have hope when I talk to guys like you, and I know that you're out there doing the best you can do and training guys that are going to go out there and get it and understand it. And, you know, if we all do that, put our best foot forward, maybe eventually these guys will fall by the wayside. But I'm with you. I want a commission that doesn't allow convicted child molesters to wrestle. I want a commission that doesn't allow, you know, anybody that's got active warrants to wrestle. I don't want them. I want to have blood testing. I want to have, you know, blood pressure tested before they go out, heart rate, everything before they go out there and wrestle, make sure they're healthy. And more than anything, I want them to have a standard that they set for guys to be able to be called referees, wrestlers, and promoters. And if they don't meet that standard, then they can't. I'd like to see the promoters have to put up a surety bond so that they can guarantee that the wrestlers get paid. So I'm with you 100%
that'd be great.
there, brother. Yeah, that would change everything.
Yeah, that would be amazing. You know, around here, you know, it's hard for somebody like me. I've been around for a long time, but it's hard for me to go to a local promoter and say, I want $100 to wrestle. And they're like, well, we'd like to give you that $100. We'd sure like to have you on the show, but we can use these 4 guys here and not pay them a dime. And, you know, I'm sorry, we can't use you this show. And that's a real frustrating thing, you know, like you work your whole career off trying to make a buck, and then, that buck gets yanked away from you by, you know, shady promoters and, you know, wrestlers that don't know what they're doing.
Yep. And, you know, that's the truth. And there again is a promoter that doesn't understand the difference because, you know, I ran for 7 years in Northern Virginia, and the Headbangers were mainstays with me. Bundy worked for me, Tom Brandy. We trained Joey Mercury, who worked there, Christian York. A lot of guys came through there that were Axel Rotten worked for us. A lot of the Maryland Championship Wrestling guys did. And you know what? It cost me, back then I was paying guys $100. It cost me more to run a show than anybody else. But you know what? I sold out the same building every 6 weeks for 5 years. You know, seated about 500 people, but we sold it out. But you know what it was? It was the quality of wrestler that was good and put in front of the fans. You know, these guys looked like wrestlers. They could tell a story. They could get people emotionally invested, and they did their job and they knew what they were doing. And it's the hardest thing I think to get through to promoters is that you're never going to build anything on a rocky foundation built on free wrestlers. If you want to build a promotion, you got to be able to have some money to bankroll yourself. Bring in some talented guys that can go out there and get over, get the crowd invested in the match. And that's when people leave. If you can run it in 2.5 hours, people leave and they go home and they tell their friends how great it was versus 5.5 hours. Terrible wrestlers. They go home and tell all their friends how bad it was. So, you know, we get it. I just think we need to have some kind of standard or some kind of, association where, you know, that guys go to that association to book talent, and promoters that they're doing the good things can be a member, and, you know, something like that so that we can get guys on the same page and, you know, hopefully absorb those other guys eventually.
Right. Maybe we should start a petition.
Well, I got, you know what?
Where do I sign?
I'm going to send you a request on Facebook, Cody, because I've been working on something for a year and I'm about ready to launch it. And it's absolutely positively going to change the face of the wrestle business for guys like you and me and promoters to get it and young guys coming up to go through full training. So I think it's going to be pretty amazing. I'll share it with you. It should be ready to roll out. The lawyer should be done with it next week, and I'm going to roll it out the week after. And I'll put a lot of guys in on it if they want to get in on it. I think it's going to be a great thing.
Sounds great, man. Excited. Anything that's a positive for the wrestling business excites me nowadays.
Me too. You know what? Listen, it's funny as it sounds. I mean, I had a kid who found me because a friend of mine on Facebook shared my post about my school, and he saw it, and he's only lived 12 miles from me, but he didn't know I existed here. So anyway, he came down to the school, and I said, tell me about why you want to be a wrestler. And this kid went on, and I swear to God, I've done that with everybody I've ever trained. And he was close to Christian York or Joey Mercury when I said, tell me why you want to be a wrestler. He had all the correct answers. And he said, plain and simple at the end, he goes, "This is the only passion I'd ever had in my life, and it's the only passion I ever want to continue forward with." And I'm like, you know what? This is a kid who'll put up with a bump and bruises because he's got the heart for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you there. I'm actually, I have one of my students here with me tonight, at the show we're at tonight. It was actually somebody that Drew referred to me, and, you know, he lived 2 hours away from me, and he was commuting 2 to 3 days a week to train with me, and, I had an empty room in my house, and I was like, hey man, you know, transfer your job over here, get yourself, you know, situated, and, you know, just, you can roommate at my house, and, you know, you can train, and you'll be closer, and you don't have to do all this. And I wouldn't do that for any and everybody, but, you know, he showed me that he had the drive and the passion, and, you know, he paid his bills, his gym dues on time, and he worked his butt off to stay current, and he made that long drive for several months. And, you know, that to me says this guy wants it, and he's willing to give it all and do everything he can to get there. So I'm willing to do everything I can to help him.
Yeah, you know, that's so great to hear, because you know the kids that say, well, your school's an hour from me. Yeah, it's right. I don't want to do a show more than 2 hours away from my house. Well, you don't live in reality if you want to be a wrestler then, son, because we all hold freight. So I have that happen once in a while. I tell the story that in 1982, when I decided to be a wrestler, I decided when I was 9, which was long before then. I was living in upstate New York, where I'm from, and I checked into wrestling schools because I had a friend who was a fill-in wrestler in Broome County, which is Binghamton, New York, at the Coliseum. And he hooked me up with Gagne's, which was in Minnesota. And I was in upstate New York. You know, weather's like it is out there in Ohio. It's just as cold up there. Calgary, it was just as cold up there. And then my Via school in Honolulu. So I sold my snowmobile. I sold both my cars. I sold my lawnmower. Everything I owned, I sold. Packed a sea bag and a couple suitcases. When I got on a plane, flew 5,000 miles away before internets and cell phones, and landed in a land where I knew not one person, got a room, went down to the training center. They told me no. I went to the other training center, Lars Anderson, on the island of Oahu, and he said no. And then I went back and I begged him, and then I followed him to training, and then they said, okay, we'll train you. But, you know, the people complain about driving an hour. I went 5,000 miles away and left every friend, relative I ever knew in my life, you know? And that's the commitment that's missing today with a lot of guys too, because you remember how it was back in the day. I mean, you know, in 1999, 2000, before that, maybe to 2002, didn't it seem like every wrestler went to the gym and everybody was worked out? Everybody wanted to be bigger and stronger so they could get a shot. And now, I see guys that call themselves wrestlers, and I look at them, I'm like, man, you know, I was always taught that if you walk out there and the guy in the second row who's 5'10" and 190 pounds looks at you and thinks he can kick your butt, you're in trouble. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a 6'3", 260-pound guy like me or you. It means that you have to be an intimidating looking character. And that's what wrestling needs, is those intimidating characters. I find it ironic though that all these guys that don't go to the gym, have the same tattoos and haircuts, all want to be a tough guy and not sell. They want to be a tough guy.
Back when I was trying to make a name for myself and get in, you know, like my worries were like, you know, should I get on the gas? Should I not get on the gas? What can I do to make myself look better? How can I be bigger? How can I do this? Because that's what they're hiring. They're not hiring skinny guys that look like plumbers. And, you know, like that was my big worry. And now it seems like the guys that I train and stuff and the people that are in and around, like, it seems like their big worry is, you know, getting home so they can play their video games for a little while. And, you know, sorry, I can't make it to practice tonight. I'm in the main event on 2K14. Okay, well,
wow.
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to like we were talking about with passion. You know, back in 2000 and in 2002 and those, in 99 and earlier with UQ, everyone had the passion and wanted to do better. And now there's just, you know, like we talked about, all these free guys out there that are just happy wrestling in front of 20, 30 people for nothing.
And Cody, you know what Drew said, him and I just talked about last week, that kills me when a guy tells me, oh, I'm happy just working 1 or 2 independent shows a month. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you know, you want to look at him and say, you know, first off, I think maybe I'm a dinosaur. Maybe that's the way the world's gone. Maybe people just want to do this on their terms. Maybe they don't feel like they're ever going to go anywhere. I don't know. I don't know where that mentality comes from, because I can tell you none of the three guys talking right now had that mentality when they started out. I know that.
You know, and I tell guys that work for me, when they come to work for me and they're working and, you know, and they don't go to the gym, or, you know, they've got to do to get better. I say straight up to them, be honest with me. Tell me that you're not trying to go somewhere. Tell me that this is just a hobby for you. And I'll still find a home for you, and I will still find something viable for you to contribute to the show, but I'm not going to put you in my main selling storyline because you're not going to make me money.
Absolutely. Right on the money right there. You know, he's not going to make himself money. He's not going to make you money. Not going to put people in seats. And you know, for me, it's still hard to look at a guy who, you know, is going to be content. I mean, and I'm talking 19, 20-year-old kids that are 6 foot tall, 190 pounds. They could get bigger. You know, to me, when they say, no, you know, I just want to do it locally. I think what a lot of it is that they just want to be able to tell people that they're a wrestler. Because
they want to tell people they're a wrestler, and they don't want to get out and travel and put the time and effort in to go anywhere besides the place that's 10 minutes from their house.
Right. And you know, it's a different era. They tell people they're wrestlers now. People used to tell us we were wrestlers. People used to look at us and go, are you guys wrestlers or something? You know, that doesn't happen anymore as much as it did, because all the bag boys out there and the guys that won't work out telling everybody I'm a wrestler. People look at it now like, I guess anybody can do it. And back, you know, when we started, and when I started in 82, it was so protected. I mean, you know, they weren't telling me no when they set me away. They were telling me, be more persistent, show me your passion, show me that you want this. And when I started stalking them and following the training every day, thank God they didn't kill me. They realized I really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just well, keep doing what you're doing out there, brother. You know, having another brother out there doing the right things makes me proud to be in the business. And you know, we're on the Undisputed Wrestling Show, and we're talking heart to heart with a guy from the Heartland, Cody Hawks. Drew Skills on the side, and we'll be joined in a little while by Will Huckabee, the NWA Continental Heavyweight Champion. Drew, you want to wind it up with Cody, let him get out of there and enjoy some of the show?
For sure, man. Cody, I want to thank you for coming on, brother. You know, I wouldn't be here today doing the Undisputed Wrestling Show or anything related if it wasn't for a guy like you investing time in me and helping teach me the right way. So I really appreciate it, and thanks for coming on tonight and sharing your story with everybody.
Well, I thank you guys both for having me on the show. And, you know, Drew, on a personal note, you're a close personal friend, and I hope you always stay that way, man. And, you know, Q-Ball, like, I don't know you well, but you're a man who thinks like me, so I know we'll always get along just fine. And,
Amen,
you know, I appreciate you guys having me on the show, and I think this SmackDown's getting ready to let out here any old way, and I'm headed across the river to meet up with my boy John at the beer cellar.
Yeah, man.
You want to plug your social media real quick, Cody?
Yeah, man. It's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, / Cody FN Hawk, or CodyHawk.net is the website for training purposes, or to see where I'm going to be and what I'm out and about doing. And that's where you can find me at, or MyCustomBase.com.
Right on, brother. Love you, man. Take care. And you tell Mox I said what's up, and you guys drink one for me as well.
All right, my brother. Take care. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See you, man.